What's up? This is Hometown Hero, and I'm here with Ladasha Diamond. She's going to share her personal story of strength, resilience, and overcoming adversity. So she is an activist, an artist, a community leader, a mother, and an entrepreneur. And most importantly, she is a survivor. So without further ado, let's get into it. So can you state your name and what brought you here?
My name is Ladasha Berry. I go by Ladasha Diamond, and I'm well known as Diamond Solid Work.
Can you describe your childhood? Where'd you grow up? Who did you live with? What was the neighborhood like? What was the dynamics like? And can you give some examples?
Sure. I grew up in Oakland, California, East Oakland to be exact. I grew up on a street called Seminary Avenue. If you know, you know. After midnight, it's called Cemetery. The dynamics were, I'll just set the tone, 80s, 90s, drug dealing, the dope era at its finest. I lived on $1 million dope spot. So selling drugs was a normality for me, seeing drug dealers, seeing what's up to them, hanging out with them, watching them do what they do, was a part of my growing up. I never judged them. I would always question them and ask them kind of like, why are they doing that? And like, what's the benefit of it? Because, I do know that drugs do hurt our people. And we grew up with a program called DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance Education. So it was kind of like an oxymoron to have drug dealers in my neighborhood, but then at the same time at school being told to say no to drugs. So yeah, the dynamics were pretty tough, but trying to navigate right and wrong and what to do, um, so that you won't really mess up your future. But at the same time, you're living in the moment and you have to do what you have to do to survive. So I saw a lot of violence in my neighborhood growing up. I saw some prostitution. I saw people fighting each other, and I saw a lot of poor people making the best with what they had, including my grandma, who I was raised with. I was raised with my grandmother. My mother passed when I was really young, and my grandmother raised me and my two brothers. So that was a whole nother dynamic in itself with like having a generation missing and then interacting with my grandma, who was like a lot older.
So tell me, like personally, how seeing these things in your community or things that are associated with the drug dealer lifestyle affected you personally.
Oh wow, that is a great question, and I'm so glad you asked me that. I think for me, I had a special situation that helped me navigate that. That peer pressure of using drugs or selling drugs, which I, have had my fair share of usage. Like I popped pills before, I smoked some weed before, but for me, I had a family um that suffered from addiction. So my dad was an alcoholic, my mom popped pills, and my aunt used drugs, and it caused a family tragedy. So because my uncles were selling drugs and my auntie and mom were using drugs, one particular time my aunt was looking for powder and she ended up taking angel dust. And at that point she lost her mom. So for me, it's like no to hard drugs. It's a hard
Wow.
no.
That's it. So, I mean, you speak about your family and just seeing these things in the home and saying, hey, I don't really want to do that. But would you say that your grandmother was that one source of strength that kind of guided you, whether she told you, hey, don't do drugs, or she just kind of showed and proved?
Well, my grandma didn't have to do too much because I was basically a consequence of, you know, uh, my family using drugs. So basically what I mean by that is that when your parents are on drugs, they're not present. They're not available. So my dad, he spent a lot of time in rehab. Right. So I missed spending a lot of my early childhood with him. So, it didn't take a lot for me to realize, wow, make a correlation that drug usage, it causes problems. Like with my aunt, she ended up in a mental hospital for her, what happened to her from using the angel dust. She ended up developing schizophrenia.
Wow.
So like it was spoken or I could hear it in the household, things that happened to other people in our family, but I didn't have to like be told don't use drugs because it felt like it was just kind of obvious.
Okay.
And then my grandma, she was older already, so she
Right.
didn't have drugs or alcohol in the
Right.
house. So I didn't have a lot of that around me when I was growing up.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback off something that you said about your father. Most girls, daughters are their fathers are their daughters' first. Am I saying?
Yeah.
Their daughter's first love. So with your father being in and out of rehab, I'm not sure if he was in and out of prison. But how did that personally affect you, just as someone who wanted their daddy?
Yeah. Well, for me, I have very high expectations of people. So if you're a father, a mother, I just look at the job description. So if you're supposed to nurture, take care of, provide, be emotional support, I base it on that. So if you're not there doing that, then I just look at you as a person who is incapable or doesn't have the ability, and in some cases doesn't want to. So I would talk to my dad, like, hey, dad, we had a relationship where I could talk to him very candidly and very openly. So I'm like, dad, I would like for you to get me a dog. I would like a stepmother. I would like you to make me a family. You know what I mean? And, that was one thing that I wanted and I expected of my dad to do for me. And he couldn't do it. And he didn't do it. So I kind of was very disappointed with him. And, when people let me down or I have a high expectation and it's not met, I just feel disappointed. I don't hate you. I just don't look at you the same and I don't have the same expectations for you. And I just put it like, it's up to you. If you wanted to do that, you would. If it meant something to you, you would do that. And my dad was there for me the best way he could, I would say. He came to like my high school, came to my graduation. He was there. He wasn't there in all the ways I felt like he should be. And it could have a negative effect on me with men growing up because I don't have a lot of tolerance. So when men let me down or they break promises, I just have a high boundary of like, that's a non-negotiable that I'm not willing to deal with, and I might cut you off for that.
So my question to you is that you say your father wasn't necessarily there the way in ways that you would like him to be, but he was there in some ways. But do you feel that you have forgiven your father for his transgressions, or have you begun that healing journey, or are you just not there yet?
Good question. So for me, I'm always in a forgiving process because I believe forgiveness is a process and it happens in layers, right? So you might be ready to have a conversation, but you're not necessarily ready to forgive everything, right? You might be open to meeting with somebody or being around them, but you're not necessarily let it go. So for me, my dad passed away in 1995.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, 2005. My granddad passed in 95. Rest she's granddaddy. All right, my dad died in 2005, and I was the person who found his body.
Oh my God.
So that's a very humbling experience, right? With a person you're kind of disappointed in and all this stuff, and then you end up finding their dead body. That's a very vulnerable state. And I felt like so confused on why did God allow me to find this person and like, how do I feel about this? Well, I felt like God gave me that responsibility and He put it on me to forgive. He gave me that opportunity to see how I was going to show up. And all the expectations that I put on others, I feel like it was put on me at this point. So, how are you going to show up as a daughter? Where's your loyalty? Where's your love? Regardless. And how do you forgive, right? Someone who passed away. So I've been forgiving him along the way by accepting him for who he was. I accepted that my dad was a player type of guy. He liked different women and he loved to socialize. He loved music. I had to accept my dad for who he was, not what my expectation of him was. So I started forgiving him when I was young and accepting him for who he was. And then just setting boundaries like, well, dad, when I come to your house, I just want to make sure there's no inappropriate, paintings on the wall that makes me feel uncomfortable being with you. And I would like when you spend time with me that our time is our time and you don't cut it and go deal with someone else or something like that. So that's kind of how I deal with all my relationships. Whatever you do is what you do, but when we're together, just respect my boundaries and my time.
So that was real heavy. And I'm glad that you spoke about that because there's so many people I feel like that could help. Including myself, whose father passed away 3 years ago. But let's go on to something a little bit more light. Your name is Richard. I think you're the only Ladasha I've ever met, ever. So tell me a little bit about how you got your name. Is there a meaning behind it?
Oh, cool. So my name is Ladasha. Ladasha. 3 syllables, all A's. Ladasha. Ladasha. So it's really simple, but like you said, it's very unique, right? So growing up, I was like, why is my name Ladasha? Who else is named Ladasha? There's no one named Ladasha. I can't stand my name, right? Because no one can get it right. Ladasha, Lashada, Lashanda, all these names. That wasn't Ladasha.
Spent your whole life correcting people.
Ladasha. Yeah. And I didn't like my name. Always having to correct it. And then, it's a derivative of Latasha. So I'm like, it's just Latasha with a D. If you can't get Ladasha, it's Latasha with a D.
I mean,
And
that's
then-
to the point.
Yeah, it's to the point. It's simple when you get it, right? So my name, I didn't know what it meant when I was young. So I started looking it up and I realized, I heard it was from South Africa. So I was kind of happy about that because I grew up like Nelson Mandela, activist, global activist. So I'm like, oh, South Africa, maybe that's where I'm from, and all this stuff. But I was named by my auntie, my Aunt Shirley, and my Uncle Herman Dupree Cox. Thank you, Auntie. Thank you, Uncle. They named me Ladasha. And later, as I grew up and I kept researching, I found out it means a gift from God. And I believe that to be true because the way I walk in the world and the way that I am a gift to others, I truly believe I am a gift from God. So my entire name at birth was Ladasha, middle name Monique, Monique. So that's where the unique part of me comes from because Neek, right? Monique, Ladasha Monique. And my last name before it was Berry, my maiden name is Nutting, Nutting. Ladasha Monique Nutting. That's what I grew up with, right? So my dad is half English, and his name actually was Nuttingham. Nottingham. So when they came to America or whatever, they dropped the O and turned it to a U, and they dropped the ham, so it became Nutting. So that's a little bit of my history. I'm Black, white, and Native American.
So, as long as I've known you, you've been Diamond the Solid.
Yes.
Or people just simply call you Diamond. Where did that come from? Did you say, hey, I'm going to start telling people this is my name? Or did you get it as a nickname in the neighborhood? Or what?
Okay, good question. I'm glad you asked. So, in 2006, I began rapping with a good friend of mine named Remy. Remy's name is Brandy, right? But, people in the hood, they use alias names. So, her alias is Remy, right? So, I was Ladasha, a.k.a. Dasha, a.k.a. LD. Those were my nicknames in the hood. LD, basically. So, I'm like, well, Remy and Dasha, okay, we created a group called Remy D, the Remedy, right? But I'm like, I don't want to be Dasha out there in the rap world. I don't want to be Dasha. That's my personal family name. I just told you how I got that name, right?
Right.
So it meant a lot to me, and I don't want to be out in the world with my family name like that. So I'm like, I need a D name. I need a D name. I need a D name. So me and my little cousin, my play cousin, Ebony, we were up there just talking about D names. She said, you know what, cuz? Diamond, because you're a diamond in the rough. I said, well, damn, you're right, cuz. That's the name. And Diamond was born.
So, we talked about your childhood, but let's go a little deep. How did growing up in the community that you grew up in, with the family you grew up in, or just seeing different things growing up just as a human being impact you into adulthood?
All right, well, I grew up in East Oakland, like I said, right? So my family came from the South. My grandma came from Louisiana, and my grandpa came from Arkansas. They came to Nevada, West Side, right? They came to Nevada. My mom was born in Nevada, September 7th, 1954. My dad grew up in Florida. So my grandparents moved their children, their family to California around the 60s. So they started off in West Oakland, which was really cool to know. My granddad went to Morningstar Baptist Church on 34th,
Right on.
right there. And that's where his funeral was. So that's when I found out in 1995 when he died that he had roots in the West, in West Oakland. I always thought he was from East Oakland. But technically, we started in West Oakland, and that really made me feel good because the West is the mecca of Oakland, if nobody really knows. That's where the business started and where all the families came from originally. So I was really happy to know that. So I grew up in East Oakland with my grandma. We lived on Seminary, but my grandma raised a lot of her kids in the 6-9 village. So my older brother and cousins and uncles were from like the 6-9 Ville. So they adopted, the mob mentality. And at the end of the day, my family is a part of one of the biggest, gangs in the United States, which is called BGF, Black Guerrilla Family. So a lot of my uncles were a part of that original mob, the OG mob. I want to give a shout out to my uncle Charles Lewis, rest in peace. My uncle Keith Lewis Sr., who's on death row right now, and my little cousin Keith Lewis Jr. Um, because they're pretty much the reasons why the family is solidified in Oakland as one of those families. So I won't name too much more, but at the end of the day, shouts out to Daryl Reed, Little D, because we all grew up together. And rest in peace, Felix Mitchell. Meaning my family and their families grew up together in that whole mob, right? So basically, what I know is a lot of things is to be sold, not told. A lot of things is to be quiet. A lot of things is not exposing your hand. I just learned a lot of game from my family, which allows me to move the way I move. I'm not the person that talks a lot, really loud, a lot of clout, and just around a lot of people doing a lot of things, because that's not the mob mentality that I was raised with. A lot of this is just more quiet on the under. You keep it between you and your family, and you don't really speak on these things until really never, until you have to, but really never, just within your circle.
That is the rules of protocol.
Protocol, right? So that's the way I move, and I like to deal with people who move like that as well. So growing up, I grew up very intelligent, very smart. I had a lot of support from my family. They wanted to see me shine. I was very gifted in school. So they always supported me no matter what I did. I had a lot of love, a lot of support, and I knew I was with the mob. So really, I knew that I was safe and protected at the same time. And also, I wasn't going out looking for trouble because we don't want to bring the family into unnecessary drama. So that was another thing. But it was like hard because I wanted to like change the trajectory of my life, my family life. So it kind of was a split in the family where some stayed with the street life and some like turned their life to God and went a different route. And like that's the route I took because I ended up being raised with my grandmother because of a deep family tragedy that happened with my mom and her sister uh, regarding drugs and guns and violence. So even though I grew up with the mob, a part of that I reject because of the consequences that you can suffer from being in that type of life.
So you talk about your mother and a tragedy that happened, and you don't necessarily have to go into full detail if you don't want to. It's really for your comfortability, but just tell us a lot about your mother and just kind of speak her name and honor her in this moment.
That's great. Ruthie Mae Cox. Ruthie Mae Cox. That is my mother. She was born September 7th, 1954, and she passed away June 12th, 1981, at the very young age of 26 years old. It's so crazy you say that. Like, Mom, you died at 26 years old. It's so amazing because I'm 45 years old right now at the making of this documentary. I'm 45 years old. 45 and a half years old. Born January 3rd, 1979, and it's July 7th. So I'm exactly 45 and a half. So my mother, she passed away at a very young age due to a family tragedy. Like I told you guys, my aunt and my mom, they were using drugs. My uncles were selling it. And my aunt ended up taking angel dust mistakenly for cocaine. It caused her to lose her mind. And she was with the mob. So she had access to guns. We're living a very, very luxurious lifestyle. In the Oakland Hills, they rode Rolls Royces, Rolls Royces, they had the furs on. They lived that life. My aunt was a model. She's very beautiful. Her and my mom were only a year apart. And, schizophrenia caused her to start hearing voices and things like that. And one day she just heard these voices tell her to shoot my mom. And she shot my mother. And my mother ended up passing away. And I was 2 years old. So a lot of the reason why I go so hard and my resilience is as strong as it is because of this story and because of what I know about my family history and how because of that it separated my family. It broke the family apart. So I was just this little happy child growing up, without my mom, but I had this spark and I had this joy inside and I had these gifts and I was very talented and smart and I just feel like I'm living for me and my mother.
So that's a horrible thing for a child
Yeah.
to experience, especially at 2 years old. So I guess my question for you is that once you realize that your mother was gone, right, the transition, as you like to say, and just growing up just through your life, what are things that you feel like you dealt with that maybe if your mother was alive, you wouldn't have had to deal with, or things that you experienced, whether it be with relationships that your mother at that time would have been much older, could have gave you wisdom about?
Well, I think about that a lot. I mean, I think about my mother every single day. So there's days when I'm sad when I think about her because I miss her or I miss the things we didn't get to do. Or there's days when I'm happy because I'm here, I'm alive because of her, and I know I'm living my life for her and she's living her life through me, right? And some things that I would think about would be like when I got my first period, like I wanted my mom to be there, tell her about my first period. When I got married, when I had my first child, it's like, oh, my mom's not here. She, to walk me through this process of becoming a mother. But because I missed her so much and I just wanted that motherly love and bond, I just used all that energy to love on my children and to uh just be the best mother that I could be for my children because I know she couldn't do that for us, but I do truly believe that she wanted to. And I can say that surely because I did go to therapy about this, over the years. And I was just wondering, like, why did she die? I always wonder, like, why did she fight for us? Why did she just die like that? She didn't care about us enough then to fight. And, therapist just kind of told me that based on the way, like, I'm happy, I'm nurturing, and like when you're little and you go through therapy, you do like play therapy. So I would play with the dolls, I would coddle the dolls, I would wrap the dolls. So that was signs that I had been taken care of and I had been loved. So once I recognized that, I felt okay. Like my mom's in the spirit realm and she's protecting me. She's my guardian angel. I know she's always there. And through all my experiences, I just take her with me. Like I go to her graveyard regularly, to her grave site. I talk to her. I talked to her when I was pregnant. I talk to her when I go through trouble. I talk to her when I'm having a bad relationship. And I feel like she just brings me a peace. And I might not can hear from her, but it's like these feelings that I feel. And I know she's there and protecting me and just guiding me on my path to my purpose.
So you talked about your aunt essentially killing your mother. Uh, you were 2.5 years old. So I know there's like selective memory. Sometimes people remember, sometimes people don't. But what is the first time you remember recognizing that your mother was no longer alive?
Yeah. I think in the beginning I was pretty traumatized. So I had a lot of crying, a lot of like unable to sleep, wanting my mom. But I think around 5 years old when I really realized it, when I got ready to start school and I see all the other kids with their mothers, their parents, their moms, and I'm with my grandma. And I kind of resented it, like, why am I with my grandma? Where's my mom? And then around 8 years old, that's when I got enough courage because I always would think about my mom and I always would wonder. So I've been hearing the stories around the house that my aunt did it, and I just finally asked her, why'd you kill my mother? Why'd you kill my mom? We were in a room in the bedroom with the two twin beds and she was sitting on one and I sat on one and I faced her and I just asked her. She told me, the voices told me to do it, and they told me to shoot her and she wouldn't die. But she shot her. She left. She ran, and my mom bled to death. So that's how my mom passed away because she didn't get help in time.
Wow.
And I was very young, and I just looked at my hand and I said, "Don't listen to those voices." And I left the room.
Okay. Do you feel in the time, so your mother passed in 1981, so in the 43 years since your mother has passed, do you feel like you've been able to forgive your aunt, or it's just like, I can never forgive you for doing that?
Hmm. Good question. Very good question. Here's the thing. We talked about forgiveness earlier and like with my dad. So forgiveness is a process, right? So at a young age, maybe I don't know exactly how to forgive or what it looks like, right? But I was kind of forced to. So when I was little, my grandmother, this her daughter, remember, these her two children, two daughters. One passed and one is mental hospital. Right. So my grandma taught me and my brothers and the rest of the family to forgive her because she wasn't in her right mind, and it was a family tragedy. So she wasn't like a killer or murderer. She was sick and suffering. And my family actually went to get help from the government, the medical facilities, and they were turned away numerous of times. So what helped my aunt, the reason my aunt isn't like in life in prison or on death row somewhere, is because they were asking for help for many years and she couldn't get it, and they told my family until she does something, there's nothing we could do. So the something was my mom ended up being shot. So my aunt only did like a year in jail, and then she went to Napa, mental health hospital. And from there, she just had in and out of John George, in and out of halfway houses. And throughout my whole life, I've been with my aunt because my grandma raised us together. So I care about my aunt. She's one of my favorite cousins' mom, my cousin Francine. Boom, this is her mother. Like, she didn't even get to grow up with her mother. She was taken from her mother at a very young age. So, but me and my cousins are still held cool. So it's kind of hard to hate her and love
Right.
cousins. So at the end of the day, the
But
whole family might be upset and mad. It's a tragedy, but we love my aunt. I
right,
kiss her. I hug her when I see her. It was just her birthday in May.
right,
And, last year I went and called her, visited her, because she's alive and I could touch her and talk to her. She's still an extension of my mother. And she's my
right,
mother's sister.
right.
So she actually knows my mother way more than me. And, being a part of her life is also kind of being a part of my mom's life. So I have forgiven her. It comes in like stages. And there has been time in my adult life I had asked myself, did I really forgive, or was it just something forced on me? And I had to find my own forgiveness. And it took me through a stage of anger first, and being mad, being angry, upset, and then also being compassionate, empathetic, and forgiving, because the drugs coming in our community isn't our fault, But like you asked me earlier how I feel about drugs, this is why I hate them, and this is why I refuse to use them.
So, what would you say is the most traumatizing thing you've been through, whether it be as a child or as an adult?
Yeah, one of the most memorable tragedies or traumas that I had is losing my mom. And I think what it does when you have something so traumatic happen to you at such a young age, you're not really able to process it. So you don't really know what it's done to you as you grow up, until you get into situations and relationships where you start to recognize toxic patterns repeating themselves over and over again. And then once you have awareness of that, like for me, for an example, I can say relationships. Um, I got married young. I was 19. I was so much trying to be this perfect mother, wife, lover, friend, that I didn't really take the time to process what I had been through as a child, and recognize what my needs were, what my triggers were. And that takes time. So a lot of times I feel like a childhood trauma, you can re-traumatize yourself as an adult if you don't take the time to process it.
So, what were you like as a child? Like, what was your personality? Like, were you funny? Were you standoffish? Were you the bully? Like, were you not? Were you like the teacher's pet? What kind of kid were you?
Oh, that's so funny. I think as a child, I had a little bit of all that within me, right? So I had the trauma, but I was still a child. So I was raised on my grandma, so I was really sheltered. So my personality was really serious because I had lost my mom already. So 4 or 5 years old, I was paying attention to everything. Very hyper vigilant, very observant. I'm like, what's going on? Who is that? I watched the news a lot as a child. I knew about the Zodiac killer. Okay, I knew about all kind of stuff going on in the community. So I was very like skeptical. I was very like interesting of people. I was always watching them. But at the end of the day, I was super fun loving. I love to laugh. I love to watch, like Martin growing up and fun stuff and doing fun stuff. But as far as like with the household, my grandma, I would like to say that I was a child that was pretty obedient. You know what I mean? I wanted to be cooperative. I wanted
For
to
sure.
make the family happy and proud, and I wanted to do the right thing for the most part. Um, did I get into trouble? Yes. Did I, not always do what I was told? Of course. But for the most part, I was a happy child, a smart child, and a person who liked to be a high achiever. So I like to do my own work. I like to win games and competitions, and I like to just be the best that I can be.
So would you say that you were shy? Were you outgoing?
I was really shy when I was young. I was really shy because I was very aware of myself. I had a lot of self awareness. I wasn't really insecure. I just was aware that how people looked at you. I was aware how people judged you. So I didn't like to be in the limelight because I didn't want to be looked at and judged. And I think a lot of that came from me losing my mom because at the end of the day, there was a lot of eyes on us. I mean, our family was a target for a little while. The news media, CPS, social workers, like everybody was coming to the house. So it was a lot of in my face, a lot of interviews, a lot of talking. So I got to a point where I didn't want to talk. I like to just be to myself in my room. I play with my dolls. I had imaginary friends, and I enjoyed that.
So when your mother passed away, that it was on the news?
Yeah, pretty much. The police and news came to the house.
Okay.
Yeah, you got took out the house like that. As I grew into a teenager, however, my shyness slowly faded away because I started making friends and I started achieving. I started being a leader in my school. I ran track. I played basketball. I was a journalist for my school, so I
You
wrote a
really
lot of articles for
was
the
you really a
yearly.
baller?
Yeah, I could play. I was really good with the free throws, and I was really good with rebounds. So small forward, hard in the paint. It started way back in track and field. I love team play. Stick. So I grew up out of my shyness a little more and more and more as I grew up. And now as I became an adult and started rapping, um, that was a part of me getting out of my shyness because I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to grow up and be an attorney. But because I was shy to public speak, I'm like, how am I going to be a successful attorney like Johnny Cochran? Because that was my like hero. Growing up, I wanted to be like Johnny Cochran. And I'm like, I need to find my voice. So I felt like music, spoken word, and rapping was my segue to finding my voice.
So what motivates you to stay motivated through adversity? You dealt with a lot of adversity from birth. So moving into your adulthood, how do you overcome adversity? Is it the trials and tribulations that you went through as a child that motivates you to keep going?
Yeah, I think about that a lot. And I think the older I get and the more adversity that I overcome, I would like to just say it becomes automatic. Like, I feel like I'm an expert at this point of overcoming adversity because I've had to overcome it from such a young child. I feel like it's built a muscle in me to where it's almost like, well, bring it on. What's the next situation? What's the next challenge that I can face and overcome? Because I recognize that I am an overcomer. And my mantra, hard in the paint, means to approach any problem, obstacle, or challenge with supreme confidence of success while utilizing all resources available to you. So I feel like that's what I've been doing. And it gets hard sometimes. Yeah, I feel like giving up sometimes, but I also feel like giving up is not an option because if I give up, I'm just rolling over and dying. And I can't do that. So it's something in me, a drive in me, that an impetus in me that continues to push me forward and pull me forward, like into my purpose and finding what am I here to do because I'm not going through this stuff for no reason. And that's the bigger picture that I look to, that I'm not going through this for no reason. And I'm not the only one that's going through situations like this. Other people have gone through it, and how have they overcome? So a lot of it is looking to other people who've been through situations. Like I look to Layla Ali. She's one of my mentors, heroes. Layla Ali. She's overcome a lot. You just look at her as a successful boxer, Muhammad Ali's daughter, but she still went through stuff as a child, having a celebrity father. She went through things having a mother who was neglected by her father and possibly, used drugs to cope with that. And she was the daughter of that. And she had to go through her own trials and tribulations. So reading books and reading stories and autobiographies of others is another reason that I keep going. And also remembering I have two sons behind me, now a grandchild behind me, little cousins, friends, nieces, nephews that are looking to me to guide them on their path. So I feel like it's a duty and it's an honor as well. And I get my strength from God because when I was young, that's what my grandmother told me to do. She was like, life is hard. You gotta have faith and believe in God and he'll get you through it. So I believe it.
So, do you believe in a higher power? I know some people they follow religion, some people are more spiritual. Where would you say you fall in line with that?
I believe I'm a religious person. I'm not gonna front. I'm a religious person because I was born religious. My grandma's a Christian. I was born in a Christian faith. We grew up in the Baptist church. So a lot of tradition with that. We have first Sunday communion. If you know about it, you know. I took the Lord's Supper. I believe in it. I believe in the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. I believe in Jesus as Savior. I believe that we're all sinners born in sin and we need a savior to save us from ourselves. And I can see that in the world all day, every day. I can see it with my family's dynamics. I can see it with the state of the world. So I feel like having a higher power keeps me on a righteous path and it keeps me on track towards my goals. So I feel like it helps me discipline myself with the 10 commandments or the laws of God or the Bible. It helps me stay disciplined. Do I fall out of it? Yeah. But without it, I wouldn't even have a framework to stay within. So I feel like it's just a way to help discipline humans. I don't feel like it's perfect. I don't feel like, it's like all or nothing, but I just feel like it's something that's going to help me, period. Going to the liquor store and going to the club is not necessarily going to help me. So why would going to church be so bad?
So, describe an experience in your life when you knew God was real and your faith in God was real.
Oh shoot, a couple times, several times. So I'll share one story about spirituality and faith. So I had grew up on seminary, right? So there's a lot of violence. Me and my best friend Keisha, she could vouch for this story. We were walking down the street, down seminary. We were going towards like Elizabeth to Foothill, and one of our family members had got killed. She got killed. Rest in peace. And Sonia. And we knew who the murderer was because that was from the hood and everything. And we had walked by the store and we saw the murderer, right? We both immediately freaked out, got really scared. Like, oh my God, it's him. And we kind of like hurried, which is like a fast walk, not necessarily a run.
Right, we are out of here.
We kind of little slow jog, right? And we got up out of there and we was going back towards seminary and like Bromley, going towards East 14th area from Phil. And when we got close to my grandma's house, a premonition of Sonia appeared to us, like her ghost, okay? And to tell us it's okay, I'm okay, and y'all okay. And I'm like, we both just like, did you see that? I'm like, yeah, did you see that? Yeah. And it's like, we just ran in the house. So we know that happened.
So, looking back as a 45-year-old grown woman, what would you say to your 17-year-old self if your 17-year-old self sat right next to you right now, what would you tell that 17-year-old girl?
Oh yeah, what a great question. I think the first thing I would tell her is to be herself, be her authentic self, and don't change yourself, your principles, your values, and what you believe in to validate others, to fit in with others. Because a lot of times we may do that, and those people won't do the same for you, and they won't even be around your life in the next 5 or 10 years. So I would just say be super authentic, believe in yourself, and follow your dreams.
So as we wind this down, I want to know, how do you define success? What does success look like to you? How do you measure success? For some people, success is having $20 million.
Mm-hmm.
But some people, success is like, man, as long as my family is straight, my kids are straight, I can go buy what I want. I'm not sure. I don't need $20 million. So what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere in between that, the $1 million in my family being straight, right? So for me, success is basically achieving a goal that you set out to do. So if I said I was going to get my degree, I was going to go to college and complete my college degree. I feel like success is when I do that, right? If I do what I say that I'm going to do. Also, I think success is not always about measuring an outcome. I think sometimes it's just actually learning something new or finding out something about yourself. Like for me, trauma bonding and breaking generational cycles and curses off my family is something that I feel like I'm becoming more and more successful with because I'm recognizing the patterns that is causing this trauma. And that's success to me of just recognizing the pattern, right? Because I might not be able to break it this lifetime, but that doesn't mean I wasn't successful. Me finding out what it is that I needed to work on to me is success, and then me working on that, right? So I feel like success is measured based on everyone's subjectivity, how you feel about it. But for me, it's really about creating a goal for yourself and reaching it, like taking the steps necessary to reach that goal. So for me, I started my own company, Heart in the Paint Entertainment, a promo company. And my big goal was like to have flyers. And I just wanted to see my name and face on flyers. And after that, I was having thousands and 10,000s of flyers. I was getting so many flyers. The police started coming to my shows because I was flooding the community with flyers. And now they're like, what's going on? Who is this person throwing all these shows? So dream come true, success. Am I a millionaire? Maybe not yet, not quite yet, but I'm on my way. So success is celebrating every step of progress towards your goal. Just celebrating every step.
So I've known you for a very long time. And ever since I've known you, that's been your motion. Before motion was even a thing. Hard in the paint, go hard in the paint, foot on the gas, all gas, no brakes. So what would you say for you was not necessarily even, you don't even have to be your most successful experience dealing with hard in the paint, but just one experience or event or artist you worked with where you was like, damn, I really did that.
Wow. I mean, there's been so many great experiences. I would just like to highlight the fact that we're still here. I started Hard in the Paint in 2007. It was an idea. And by 2010, I was doing Hard in the Paint tour. So I think that would be my first and most successful event, the Hard in the Paint tour in 2010. And it's 2024, and we're still speaking on Hard in the Paint. It's because at that year, I wanted Hard in the Paint to be a household name. I wanted the Bay Area to know Hard in the Paint Entertainment, and just knowing us for throwing fun, positive hip hop shows and providing platforms for artists, especially women, right? In a non-violent, peaceful atmosphere. And I feel like I've done that. So the 2020 Heart in the Paint tour was so great to me is because it wasn't just one show. It was 5 shows. I did a tour on my first actual show coming out. My debut was a tour. I had the Trunk Boys on it, right? So I was very excited to have that Fat Cake Belt feeling. And then they wanted to be a part of it. So that was really special to me.
So as someone who's been in this industry for almost 20 years, what is your biggest dream, whether it be for just yourself personally, whether it be for Hard in the Paint, whether it be for I Am the Label? Um, what would you say is your biggest dream or your biggest goal that you want to achieve when it's all said and done? You can sit back and be like, I did that shit.
Ah, so for me, right now we have the Ladasha Diamond brand, Ladasha Diamond LLC, right? So LDB is the Ladasha Diamond brand. And what I did with that is I took Hard in the Paint, I Am the Label Music Group, I merged them together with me, my personal identity of Ladasha. And I put it all together to figure out what did I want to do and what did I want to bring to the world. And what I want to bring to the world is more film, more media, more content creation, like this documentary of me sharing my story with the world in the hopes of empowering others to break free of toxic cycles that are holding them back from reaching their fullest potentials. So the way I want to do that is through media, film, arts, music, the way I'm doing it, but on a global scale. So just taking my brand on the road with these documentaries, filming other people, attending conferences, and just breaking through whatever glass ceilings that are there, and breaking through those so that I can reach and engage with more people on a mass scale, like global scale. And I want to provide opportunities for other artists, other women, and other entrepreneurs coming up who lack platforms, who lack like spaces for content creation. So I want to create content studios, and I want to go around the world sharing my story and empowering communities.
So before we get to the final question, I think for me, what I just want to say to you is I've known you, like I said, for a very long time, and I've seen you persevere. And I don't know if anybody's ever told you this, but I'm very proud to see, the things that you've been able to accomplish in the time that I've known. It hasn't always been easy. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, stress, and all these different things, but you persevere. And I mean, I don't know what you deal with when you're alone in the dark, like a lot of us as human beings. But I think that just you just continue to persevere, being an example for your children, your grandchild, people in the community, the people that you've been able to impact, not just in the music industry, but also in the nonprofit space as well. Because that's how we met.
Yes.
I just wanted to tell you that to your face. I believe in giving people their flowers. And so yeah, I just wanted to say that. But on to the final question. For anybody watching this, what is a piece of advice, whether it be male, female, child, adult, their own children, or just anybody that you love?
Hmm. Honestly, I think the best advice I could give is to be yourself and to trust your intuition. I think that's something that I had to learn, like just trusting myself, trusting how I feel, no matter if I have proof, no matter if I can back it up with science or anything like that. Because in the game of life, it's quick and life is short. And we don't have time to sit here and question ourselves and go back and forth with ourselves as if, you know, is this the right thing to do? Is this not the right thing to do? If something's telling you to move, move. If something's telling you to stay put, stay put. And figure it out later. But I think trusting your intuition would be the best piece of advice that I would give you. And of course, follow your dreams. Make out a plan and stick to it. And anybody or anything that gets you, defers you from that plan, cut them off or minimize your engagement with them. It's all about you, right? Because it's going to take you to the goals that you want to reach and to the heights that you want to reach. So you got to put that discipline within yourself. You got to put that trust within yourself. And you have to put yourself as number one.